What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Crossed Up. Anthony Sanfilippo's here. I'm Bob Wankel, and apologies off the top. We get Mets-Phillies. We get an all-time implosion by the Mets on Sunday, and everyone's looking to hear us come on and kind of point and laugh and gloat and LOL Mets and all that stuff. And then I'm out of town for a couple days, so we don't do it. You don't get that reaction podcast. And Anthony and I were talking before the show. We're saying, it's kind of a shame. People were probably pretty amped up to talk a little Phillies baseball on Monday morning, especially after that series. And instead, we're going to do it on a Wednesday after a good Phillies win against a mediocre at best Cubs team. And it was a game that didn't have a lot of juice to it, but we're here for the people, and we will record Friday as well. We told everyone at the start of this we were giving the people 2 podcasts per week, and we are sticking to our word. So, Anthony, what's going on, man? How are we feeling on a Wednesday here?
Yeah, feeling good, Bob. I'll tell you, it was a funny thing is, we had a lot of big Flyers news over the weekend, and so I got called to do 2 TV stations locally. I did Fox and I did CBS. Fox was entirely hockey. But CBS, I assumed the entire conversation was going to be about the Flyers. And then I get on there, and they spent the majority of the time talking about the Phillies. And I was completely, unprepared for Phillies conversation. I was totally in the hockey mindset. So I at least was able to get out some of that whole, disbelief about how they won the game, do the little LOL Mets thing. I was still able to get a little bit of that. So I was able to get it out of my system a bit. So I feel okay about it, the fact that we're here 2 days later than usual.
Well, I don't want to spend too much time talking about that Mets series, but I think where I'm at this morning, and this is probably the approach and the lead-in to go with this, isn't it amazing that the Phillies have had this month of June that has overall been overwhelmingly successful.
Yeah.
They obviously had the stumble against the Braves last week, but they rebound, and they've won 3 of their last 4, 2 out of 3 against the Mets. They get the opener against the Cubs, and I don't know if it's just me. I don't know if it's being overly critical, but I don't feel awesome about where they're at right now. What I do feel awesome about is Ranger Suárez, and I feel really good about where this starting rotation is. And I can take that knowledge and project it forward and say, this is why they're going to remain in the race. This is why I like the Phillies. There are clear strengths on this team. But I think, Anthony, what I keep coming back to is this team cannot hit. They can't hit. And I know they're winning games. I know that when you look at their overall numbers against the rest of baseball this month, there's a lot of different rankings where they slot in like 8 to 12 across the sport. So it's not like it's been dismal, but I don't know, man. I'm just a little bit underwhelmed right now. And I think I might be crazy.
Well, yeah, you're not crazy, and you should be underwhelmed. The offense has not been impressive, although it was nice to see a couple things last night that we'll kind of dive into. Brandon Marsh is really kind of course corrected, and Trey Turner seems to kind of be slowly coming out of it, right? I mean, I think that there's something there. But you're right. I mean, the offense is not what it needs to be. And I think we've given it enough time for guys to overcome slow starts and the like. But there are real concerns. But with that said, and this is something that I've been saying now all weekend, if you get good pitching is going to always hide a struggling lineup. You're in a game. Every game. The pitching is keeping you in every game. I mean, you've had this month, other than the Dodgers game that was the whole Nola thing with the blow up 7th inning with, they wouldn't let him throw the ball out. Other than that, they've either won, or the games that they've lost, they've been in every game.
Yeah.
And so that just goes to show you what good pitching means. They have not hit, and yet they're in every game, or they win or they're winning.
I mean, Zach Wheeler's start on Sunday is arguably their worst start of the month by one of the main 4 guys. I mean, he wasn't very good. And you said it. They're going to be in every game. They've been in every game here recently. We talked about the numbers. Like, you look at this staff in the month of June, the starting rotation, opponents hitting 196 against the entire starting staff. They have a whip under 1 collectively. It's June 28th. This isn't a week. It's not 4 games. It's not 1 series against the Tigers. It's been a month of just unbelievable starting pitching. And it's been such a 180 considering how concerned we've been about this rotation at different points. So yes, they're not getting the offense that we expect. I don't think that they need to get the offense that we expect in order to be in it, to contend, to be in the mix. But I think what I look at, especially over these last 4 games, like, you have the stumble against the Braves, you don't hit it all. But then you win a series against the Mets, which is what I asked them to do. I said, just win the series against the Mets. Just beat the Mets. And you come back and you get the opener last night. But it's the same thing. Like, you go back to Friday night. They're aided by the fact that the Mets can't catch a pop-up. They don't hit on Saturday. They had numerous chances to get the Scherzer in that start on Saturday. They didn't do it. Sunday, admittedly, I was not dialed into that game the way that I typically would be. But I just go back and I look at the 8th inning, the implosion inning by the Mets. The Phillies score 4 runs in that inning. They were 0 for 4 with runners in scoring position.
That's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible to do that, but it is a representation of what is going on with this team. And even last night, Brandon Marsh, nice game. I know that they get the first run right off the bat. They didn't even break into the coverage in time to get Schwarber's starting the game, and then Turner singles 1-0. Boom. Great. Awesome. Tone setting. But they had opportunities last night to break that game open, and you're just waiting to see that. And they just don't consistently distance themselves offensively. And you just look at each individual player down the lineup. Like, I was listening on Saturday before the game. Seltzer and Fritz were on doing the pregame, and they were talking about this lineup and just the lack of home run punch. And it's something you and I have talked about extensively on the show as well. And they went to break, and I said, here's a stat that I looked up. I texted it to you earlier in the day. Kyle Schwarber, as of Saturday, was on pace for 43 home runs this season. Phillies didn't have one other player in the lineup on pace for 20 home runs. They still don't. The Phillies don't have one other player besides Kyle Schwarber on pace to hit 20 home runs this season. And I texted it into Fritz, and he read it on the radio. I said, like, that is not only is that crazy for most teams to say we only have one guy that's on pace to hit 20 plus home runs, but for this team to be that team, it's mind-boggling. It's baffling.
Yeah. I guess Castellanos is getting close.
He's close, but he was like, so as of Saturday, I know he ended up hitting one Saturday, but he was only on pace for 17. So, I mean, like, it's, and
well, I mean, he's got 9. And the team's played 78 games.
Yeah, so I think he's pacing 18 at his.
Yeah, he's close. I mean, he could get there, right?
He could get there. I would probably bet on him to do it, but
yeah,
Real Muto's the next closest. Marsh is in the mix now, like after last night.
Yeah,
I mean,
Turner, and Real Muto have 8.
It's not that they don't have guys that can do it. It's just that they're not on pace currently.
Yeah,
and that's what's wild. And I know it's kind of funny to say this after this month of June where they've gone from being 7 games under to 4 games over. They're at the high. We're recording this show at their high water mark of the season. And they have Aaron Nola on the mound tonight going up against Drew Smyly. He's been pretty good for the Cubs in a game that they're favored.
Like, left-hander.
Yeah, left-hander. And we know the deal there. But like, they are favored to go 5 games over 500 tonight, which will be the best they've sat all season. So I don't want to come in here and be all doom and gloom, but I'm left wanting more. I really am. And I keep waiting for this offense. I keep waiting. And I do know that there are certain numbers that you can point to that you feel good about, but it all comes back to this runners in scoring position thing. And I don't want to belabor the point, man. And I know I'm talking a lot here, but I tweeted this out after Sunday's game. They have a 673 OPS with runners in scoring position this season. It's 28th in baseball. They have the 25th best average, the 29th best slugging percentage, the second worst slugging percentage with runners in scoring position in baseball. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah. And I think it's a problem too, Bob. I'm not going to try and defend it because I do think this is something that the players really need to fix. The only thing that I can kind of look at and say maybe it's part of it is they know that their offense is underwhelming. Okay. And so they get those opportunities. And in those individual opportunities, you have a situation where it's like, okay, I got to be the guy to get us out of this in this moment. And it's not going to, and it's the thing where even if you get a hit, that doesn't mean, okay, we're all out of this funk, right? It's going to need to be a collective, and they still need to take a smart approach at the plate, which they're not doing. And I think that's what it is. It's not that they suddenly don't know how to hit. It's not like they suddenly aren't clutch players. I think that they recognize that they've, spent the first 3 months of this season not being as good as they need to be, and then when they have the opportunities to drive them in, I think they're putting added pressure on themselves. Because look at them when they don't have runners in scoring position, their actually offense is pretty decent. I mean, it's not great, but it's top half of the league, right? I mean, so
let me ask you this then.
You're probably looking that up right now. I can see
no,
it on your face.
I'm not. I'm looking something else up, but let me ask you this. That's fine and reasonable. It's also been half a season, though.
Oh, you're right.
And so if that is the case, then whose fault is it that they can't seem to collectively get over that mental hurdle?
It's them individually. I mean, I know you want to we want to sit there and let's look at the batting coach, right?
I'm a big. I think you know me well enough that I am not like the hitting coach is at fault. It's on the players.
It's on the players.
But someone has to, like, for the lack of a better term, sack up at some point and carry the load.
Yeah. So what I think where I will look at coaching is I think that this team has too long of a leash sometimes. And I think these are some of those instances where, and this starts with the manager and probably, rifles down through the coaching staff, specifically Kay Long and Caleb Cotham, in the sense that, they're like, yeah, these guys, we know our guys, they're going to get it. They're going to figure it out. Give them time. They'll get it. And I think that kind of mentality is good to a point, but sometimes it could let the leash get too loose. Right. And then all of a sudden the dog's off the chain and now you're chasing it. And now that's, I think, what sometimes can happen. And I think the Phillies lineup is in that position, Bob, where they got off the chain and they are chasing it a little bit. Okay. So, every once in a while, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have a little bit of an accountability type moment. Whether it's, hey, we're going to give this guy an extra day off, or, hey, we're going to sit so-and-so for 2 straight games, and really kind of and then it becomes the player goes, oh shit, I got to get it right, and then I think, and this is a good, I think, way to transition to Brandon Marsh. And I think that they did this last week, and I'll give Rob Thompson credit for this. We asked about this. I was the one who was having a whole conversation with him about Christian Pache now that he's back, potentially playing more. And he said it's going to be a platoon, and he's the one who told me Pache needs to play more in center field because of how good he is defensively. Since that moment, Brandon Marsh has gone off. He's had 5 multi-hit games in his last six outings. He hits 2 home runs last night. The guy's just like on fire all of a sudden. And it's like, maybe that was it. Maybe he had the fire lit under his ass because there was competition coming, and that's what you need. That was an accountability moment for Brandon Marsh.
You know how I said I was looking something up? That's exactly what I was looking up. What has Brandon Marsh done since Anthony Sanfilippo suggested that he's a platoon player? And in 6 games, here you go, 20 at bats. He's 12 for his last 20, 5 extra base hits, 3 doubles, 2 homers. He's hitting 600 with a 1.686 OPS since the start of the Braves series. And he has responded to a little competition, and you can see it too.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a guy that has a little bit of a fire under his ass right now. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he kind of, oh yeah, you want to platoon me? Yeah. Like, I don't know if he hasn't really come out and said that specifically, but he has a little bit of that in him, and you see it right now. And it's been nice. It's been refreshing to watch a player respond to a little bit of adversity. Because we talk about this all the time. Well, does the pressure get to them? Does the contract get to them? Does their future, does their well-being, where are they at mentally? And these are all real things. Like, these aren't things to just swipe away or dismiss, but to see a player be challenged a little bit publicly and then do this has been great to see.
Yes, 1,000%. And that's the and that's good. I mean, and I wish other guys would have that same kind of mentality. But I mean, Marsh has gone so off in the last 6 games that he's now the Phillies' leading player in WAR for the year. I mean, that's how good he's been.
Does Brandon Marsh
games.
have that dog in him?
He might have a little bit of it. I don't think it's. Look, he's still just 25 years old, right? I mean, sometimes you don't expect that, to really have that answer until a player gets into that sweet spot, that 27 to 32 range, right? So he's still younger than you think, and he might have a little bit in it. But I mean, look, dude's for as much as he slumped for a good stretch of time, if you look at that slash line for the season, 283, 365, 469, 834 OPS. It's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good. So we criticized him for a few weeks there, and deservedly so. He struck out 25 times in 49 plate appearances. It was ugly for a period. But you know what? The baseball card is the baseball card, and the guy's having a pretty good season.
And then you take the defense, and this is a thing that we've talked about.
Yeah.
I watch him, and I say to myself, like, if you give me a word to describe him in center field, I'd say fine, solid, maybe. Solid is probably the word.
Yeah.
But then you dig a little bit deeper, and this requires some StatCast metrics, which I know are sometimes hard to quantify in a digestible way, like in a way that you can really say, oh, that makes sense to me. But you look at outs above average, popular StatCast metric, 6 outs above average. That's third best amongst all center fielders this season. He's in the 95th percentile. Outfield jumps, 70th percentile. Pretty good. Slightly above average. Solidly above average. Arm strength, 81st percentile. Like, he's probably played a better center field, at least based on these numbers, than I recognize. I feel like there's some balls where I'm like, come on, man, like, got to have a better jump on that. Got to have a better read on that. You go back to Saturday, I thought there were 2 baseballs that he probably should bring in. The one obviously was Schwarber out in the alley. But like, he's been good. I think he's been better overall than not that I'm willing to admit or that I'm willing to give him credit for. I want him to be successful. I like him. I like his personality. I like his dynamic that he brings to this team. But you start to look across the board and say, this guy's having a really good year through one half of a regular season. He's been better than I expected him to be when they made the trade for him.
I agree with you overall. Where I will pump the brakes on the defense is, and I know the metrics measure those things, but then you got to look at plays that he screws up. And I think he's screwed up more than the share of plays that you would want a center fielder to screw up.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And so to me, that's where I pump the brakes on him a little bit. I think he's fine in center field. He's certainly an upgrade over what they had out there a year ago before they acquired him at the trade deadline. So there's definitely, I'm not trying to make it seem a complete negative with him, but he's also not, Gold Glove in my mind.
Well, and then if you want to go by another defensive metric, which again, these are all pretty tough to truly digest. If you go defensive run saved, he's at 1 defensive run saved this season, according to Fangraphs, which is 9th out of 17 qualified outfielders. So, or center fielders. And that feels a little bit more like where I would probably.
I think that's fair.
In my mind, if you said, where do you think he's at? I'd say probably top 10, but
but it's middle of the pack. If you're saying that there's 17 qualified out center fielders, he's 9th. That's about right. He's not terrible, but he's also not among the best.
Yeah.
So, and I think I think Fangraphs has got that one right.
So I guess we're sort of bearing the lead here. We talked a little bit about where this rotation's been, and you see it in last night's game. Ranger Suárez, like I think it's time to talk about where Ranger Suárez is at overall now. 7 1/3 innings pitched last night. If Soto can nail down those final 2 outs, Suárez is unblemished in this game. He has been absolutely sensational his last 6 times out. He's been incredible in the month of June. Talking about historic month here. Like this is like Cliff Lee 2011 type stuff that we're seeing right now. Are we looking at a really solid number 3 that's just having a hell of a month? Or are we talking about a guy here that when it comes playoff time, you start to talk about him and say, man, like he's like a game 1, game 2 guy. And I know in this, like this comes with the qualifier that the Phillies are the Phillies and Zach Wheeler is 1. And if he pitches like Zach Wheeler pitches moving forward, he's 1. Aaron Nola has that body of work. He's number 2, and Ranger Suárez is number 3. But I guess what I'm really asking you is like, is there more upside to Ranger Suárez's game than maybe anyone initially thought here?
Well, let's look at it this way, Bob. And this is a track record now that he's got, and it's not just 5 games. This is a legit track record. Since 2021, he's thrown 312 and a third innings. He's got a 2.80 ERA. Okay. He's only given up 268 hits. That's 7.7 hits per 9. His walks are a little high, but that's over 3 seasons. That's a top end of the rotation pitcher. There's no question about it. We're not talking about just, like I said, 5 games. This is 312 innings over 3 seasons. The guy's giving you a 2.80 ERA and 7.7 hits per 9 innings. And striking out 8.2, which is not, it's not top of the chain. I mean, those guys are usually starters are usually in the 10s, but 8.2 strikeouts per 9 is still pretty darn good. He's a good pitcher. He's a really good ERA plus in those 3 years, 146. That's really, really good. Yeah, I think you're starting to look at Ranger Suárez and say, is Ranger Suárez in the top 25 pitchers in the game? I think he's starting to creep into that conversation.
Okay. Is he one of the top 25 pitchers in the game? I'm not going to make you go down the list here, but just if
right now, I mean, this season he is, in my mind, I mean, easily, and I would even go a little probably higher than that list for 2023. I think if you're going overall body of work, I think he's probably right. It's close. I think it's a good question. I think he's probably right around that 25 mark.
Okay, let me ask you this as a follow-up then.
Yeah.
Do the Phillies have 3 of the top 25 starting pitchers in baseball right now?
They do.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, if Taijuan Walker keeps pitching the way he's been pitching,
he's knocking on the door.
He's knocking on the door too.
Yeah, I mean, so you look at again, really and I don't want to be like this cheerleader waving pom-poms for Fangraphs, but you go into Fangraphs WAR and Zach Wheeler top. I believe he's number 3 right now. All qualified starting pitchers. Aaron Nola's 20th, I believe. And then Ranger Suárez not qualified, but I would imagine if there were some more innings there, he would be within that top 25 range at this point. In fact, I know he would be.
Yeah.
So that all kind of begs the question. I don't want to get too far removed here, but you start looking at the numbers and you go, okay, like anybody can take the ball for 5 starts and have a nice little stretch, but you look up and you see in the month of June, he has a 108 ERA. You see opponents are hitting 200 against him. You see the whip is under 1. I tweeted out after last night's game, his last 6 games, he's thrown 40 innings, 29 hits, 6 earned runs, 10 walks, 37 strikeouts. He has a 1.35 ERA. Like, I think the reason why I ask this is because my focus. You know the way that I'm watching this. I can watch a game and say, okay, this is what I saw, this is what I liked, this is what I didn't like. But it all comes back to, can you win a championship? Like, can the Phillies win a championship in the next year, 2 years? Can they do it this season? That's what this is about to me. It's not about the build anymore. It's not about, can they get back? It's not about, can they be competitive? Can they make the wild card? It's about, can they win a championship?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll ask what I just asked in a different way. Can Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, and Ranger Suárez as a 1, 2, 3, knowing that Taijuan Walker, at least what we've seen here for the last 6 weeks, as a 4, is that enough to win a World Series this year? Can you win a World Series with these 4 guys, or do you need another premium elite dude that can throw 98 miles an hour and blow your doors off?
No, you can win with these 4.
Okay.
The lineup has to hit, but this is if you're going to sit there, Bob, and tell me that the lineup is going to be what we expect it to be, you can win with these 4 guys. Yes. I don't have a doubt about it. I mean, think about it. If you're going to play a 7-game series, the first 3 guys are going to pitch twice each, and Walker's going to pitch once. So you really, you're getting. I mean, they were almost there last year, right? I mean, they were in the World Series with 3 of these 4 guys last year, pitching really well for most of it. I mean, yeah, Nola kind of petered out in the World Series, but yeah, I mean, they were 2 games away from a championship with 3 of these 4 guys. So now you add in Walker, and if he's pitching that well, can they win the World Series with this foursome? 100%. 100% they can.
I kind of want to look forward here. It's amazing. The Phillies are having this great month of June, and it's
16,
almost like
16 wins, by the way,
yeah,
so
16
far.
wins, and probably in line. And I don't want to jinx it here, but probably in line for at least 1 or 2 more before things close out. Part of the reason I get on the show this morning and I say, well, I just kind of feel a little bit underwhelmed, and a lot of it does have to do with that offense. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you look up at the standings and you just feel like they're actually treading water. Like, this is what the Phillies have done all year. It's like win 4, lose 4, and they're treading water. Well, now they're having a 16-win month of June, and they're treading water because you look up at what Miami has done this month. Atlanta has gained on the Phillies this month. It's crazy. Like, the Phillies are 10.5 games out of the National League East right now. They're not winning the division. We know that. We've talked about that. That's been pretty well established here. But you would just like to see the result of this play help you position yourself a little bit better. And I mean, you even get into the wild card, and it's absolutely insane right now. I mean, the wild card, Miami, they're 46-34. They're 12 games over 500. They've been awesome. Their pitching has been unbelievable. The Giants, say what you will about the Giants, but they're 11 games over 500. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. Yeah. You got the Dodgers, and I know Dodgers have been the one team that's sort of been leaking a little bit of oil. They're 10 games over. The Phillies, for everything that the Phillies have done, 4 games over 500. 3-4 weeks ago, if you would have said the Phillies are 4 games over 500 on June 28th, I would have said, well, they would be holding one of the 3 wild card spots. And not only are they not, they're 3 games out.
So they're 16-7 so far this month, right? At the beginning of the month, they were 6 games under 500.
Yeah.
They were 8 games out in the division, and they're now 10.5. Okay. Yeah. And if you go back to looking where they were in the wild card race on that same date, they were. I mean, just to double check.
The Phillies were 3.5 games out of a wild card spot.
They were 3.5. They were 3.5.
That's 6 under, and now they're 4 over, and they're 3 out.
They've picked up a half game in the wild card and lost 2.5 games in the division while winning 16 games this month. It's unreal. It's really like I don't understand how it's like physically possible that this happened, but it did. It legitimately happened. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does feel like they're treading water a little bit.
I mean, they are. By definition, they are treading water.
Yeah.
They made an incremental move forward, at least in the wild card, in terms of getting into the playoffs. So this is where I want to go with this today, because we know we're on a quick turnaround. We're not on our normal Monday, Friday schedule. There's going to be more Cubs series to talk about, some National Series preview, I guess. So I think we're probably actually finally once are in line for a shorter episode today. But this is what I want to ask you. Is it time to kind of reimagine what the National League actually is? Because if you go back 6 weeks ago, we're talking and we're saying, well, the Phillies are going to get in because the National League sucks. I don't know if the Phillies are any good, but we know that the NL isn't very good. There's not a lot of depth there. Right. So I just want to go through this one by one. Atlanta, I don't even think we need to engage in a real conversation. They're going to win the National League East. They're going to be the top seed in the NL. They are, as we talk right now, 25 games over 500. They have 114. They're plus 114 in run differential. They are incredible. Like, that is a machine, that team. So we know they're in. We know they're won. After that, walk me through the way that you see the National League.
I get, but the West is weird. I think that I can't imagine that the Dodgers are going to just sit back, right? I think that they're going to be a team that is aggressive at the deadline. to get what they feel that they need to get better. I still think they're the best of the three teams collectively in the National League West. So I don't say this with a lot of confidence, but I do still think they win that division. Okay.
Can I just interject here real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
National League West right now, odds to win the West: Dodgers minus 140, Diamondbacks plus 310, Giants plus 340, and about a week and a half ago, the Padres were still one of the top contenders to win the National League. The Padres are plus 1,800 right now to win the NL West.
Yeah.
So odds makers see the Dodgers as the favorite. I think I can go for that. They are, as we talk right now, 3 games behind the Diamondbacks. Arizona, they keep waiting for that collapse. Phillies take 3 out of 4, and they're 6-4 in their last 10 games. Like, they just kind of continue to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really dived into their schedule, what's coming up for them. Like I look at teams. I'm just going to pull it up real quick just to see if there's anything that just really jumps out at me about what's coming up. I mean, look, they beat give them credit. They beat the Tampa Bay Rays last night. But they're in the middle of a series, where they've got 3 against the Rays, 3 against the Angels, who are playing pretty good baseball. But then they play the Mets and Pirates at home before the All-Star break. So, but then here's where, coming out of the All-Star break, Arizona this is a 9-game road trip: Toronto, Atlanta, Cincinnati.
Yeah, that'll probably
that can
set
tell
the
you
agenda for them.
That can tell you a lot about them. Okay, I mean, they're good. I still think that they're probably a playoff team. But I still don't think that they're as good as the Dodgers. The Giants, I don't know how they're winning. I think they're a smoke and mirrors team, because I look at that, I just look at the team and I look at the numbers. I'm like, how does this team continue to win? Like, it just doesn't. It's fascinating to me that they're winning right now. Again, you look at it. They're another team that, what's going on with Toronto? They're another team. They shut out Toronto last night. They got an easier schedule coming up. Is
it possible? Let me interrupt you here. I mean, I look at it, plus 48 run differential. They're 23-16 against teams over 500 this season.
Yeah.
They have a winning record. There are only a handful of teams in baseball that have this going on right now. They have a winning record both home and away. The plus 48 run differential. And you look at the team and you're not overly impressed with the roster. Is it possible that the coaching staff in San Francisco is doing a good job? And I'm not trying to, I know, like, and in the past I've tried to be cute about this, but is it just possible that that's a really well-run organization and they're maximizing everything that they have, and that you have to actually give some credit to Dave Kapler and his staff?
You got to give them credit for maximizing what they have. But I've just looked ahead, and I see where it's going to be, and their Waterloo is going to come in August.
Okay.
They starting July 31st. I just want to run this through.
It's a month from now, though, because so what you're telling me, and I know there's an All-Star break, but they're going to have if the month of July is easy for them.
It's not that it's easy. But it's easier.
But Anthony, listen, here's the difference. If it's not that difficult, and they're already 11 games over, and let's say they have a above 500 month of July, you know how this works. You start to believe, you start to feel yourself. You have an ownership that's committed to winning. They could make moves. Like, you can position yourself to. If you're a fraud and you can fake it until you make it long enough, then all of a sudden,
yeah, no, you're right. You're right, but they're also, I mean, they're not playing a lot of difficult opponents, but they do have 17 of 23 on the road between today and towards the end of July.
Okay, that's real.
I mean, it's not an easy road for a West Coast team. Most of those games are on the East Coast too. They're coming to Eastern Time Zone for all these games.
So do you commit, like, you're committing 2 NL West teams to making the playoffs this season?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, and you're committing the Braves as
So what I think, I honestly, if you want to say what's it going to come down to, it's going to come down to the wild card team. The wild card race, in my mind, is going to be Arizona, San Francisco, the Phillies, and the Marlins, and 3 of those 4 teams are going to get in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's going to be.
Do you believe in the Reds now? The division leading Reds, who have won 7 of their last 10.
Yeah, I think they got it. I think they were on they had that great run, great hot streak. I'm not convinced that they're the best team in that division. I still, well, Milwaukee, I don't know what, I don't like Milwaukee either. I think the Cubs might actually be the best
You look at the Cubs starting
team in that.
rotation and you're like,
Yeah,
well, Stroman's been good. I love
yeah,
Steele. I think
yeah,
he's really good.
yeah,
I mean, if they had one more, like if they didn't have Tyon or whatever the hell his
yeah,
name is, if he was not just a void in the middle of that rotation, if he was what Taijuan Walker's been, Cubs would be winning the Central right now by probably 3 or 4 games.
yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. But here's why I wanted to point out the Giants and then of course the Marlins. I want to look at their Augusts. Okay, so Giants starting July 31st, and there is one series in here that it's like, okay, well that's an easy one. But other than that, they go 4 against Arizona, then they go 3 against Oakland, but then it goes 3 against the Angels, 3 against Texas, 3 against Tampa, 3 against Atlanta, 3 against the Phillies, 3 more against Atlanta, 3 against Cincinnati, and then 4 against San Diego, I guess, to end the month. That's a gauntlet, and that's going to be when we're going to know who the Giants are, right? If they're a good enough team and they can work their way through it, then credit will be given in August to the Giants. The Marlins have a very similar kind of schedule ahead for them. Again, it's more August than it is July. Again, a lot of games in July, they can pad themselves a lead. Okay, fine, but starting July 31st, 4 against the Phillies, 3 against Texas, 3 against Cincinnati, 3 against the Yankees, 3 against Houston, 3 against the Dodgers. And then there's also some more against Tampa, and then there's San Diego's in there as well. That's their gauntlet. That's their Waterloo. So I look at those two teams and say they're going to hang around. They're going to be part of this conversation through July, but August will be the telltale for them. Whereas I think a team like the Phillies has a much easier August against a lot of weaker teams. And I think that's where you might see some separation between the Phillies and then the Marlins and the Giants. Marlins and Giants might be the two teams battling for that last wild card. And I think that's probably it. But I think you're looking at Phillies and Diamondbacks. I'll predict that from now. That's your 4-5 in some capacity. I think Phillies D-backs is your NL wild card.
Yeah, I mean, the front half of August for the Phillies is where they probably can. I mean, you're going to have to beat the Marlins to start the month in Miami, but then you have a homestand that consists of the Royals, Nationals for 4, and then the Twins all at home, and they're average at best as well. Yeah. I mean, that 10 games right there at home is probably where, and that's coming off the deadline, so you should have a little juice. I assume the team will do something. You get into that position by the middle of August, but I think it's interesting that we're having this conversation about the Giants, about the Marlins. The Diamondbacks have been part of the picture here for a while now. The Reds, if nothing else, by jumping into this division picture, have made the Brewers relevant in the wild card. So now the Central is like a two-team player, in terms of a division winner and potentially a wild card team. I know you don't believe in that, but there's another team added into the mix here. And I think it just kind of illustrates the point that this is a little bit more of a crowded field at this point in the race, if you want to call it that, than maybe we would have seen coming. I think we thought all along that, there were, I'd say, 7 teams in the National League for 6 spots. And right now there's more than that. There's 9 teams, maybe even fringe 10.
Well, I'm gonna turn the question back to you. Let's look at it. You don't have to go team by team, but look at every team that we're talking about in the playoff race, including the good teams, including the Braves, Dodgers, whatever. Does any of them have a pitching staff as good as the Phillies?
I mean, Atlanta at full strength when everything shakes out. Like, I like Atlanta's staff a lot.
Right.
I don't mean to slobber all over the Braves like they're
but if they're healthy, but they got a bunch of guys hurt, right? So they're kind of muddling through right now, and you don't know what the guys
muddling through, and they've won 9 of their last 10.
Well, that's the thing. Their offense is just so good, but they don't have great pitching. They just have okay pitching.
I understand. So yeah, I'm just looking at division leaders right now. I mean, the Phillies have clearly a better staff than Arizona and Cincinnati. They have a better staff, much deeper staff than San Francisco. Los Angeles, all the respect in the world to Clayton Kershaw, and I love Miller, and Urias is a good pitcher. 1, 2, 3. If those guys are all firing, I'd be a little bit nervous about LA.
Yeah.
Miami, I'll tell you what, man, there's so much talent there, and their best, most established guy is having a nightmare season.
Yeah.
And if he can become himself, I would actually say, like, now I know that I think there's some innings limitations down the line there with them, but yeah, I mean, to your point, Phillies probably have the second best staff, maybe if everything's clicking the way it has this month, the best staff of all these teams.
Right. And that's why, to me, when it comes down to it, you can have as many teams as you want in the race. The team with the best pitching is going to always come out ahead.
What if you get a meet the hype Andrew Painter the last 2 months of the season?
Well, that too, right? I mean, there's that too, right? We haven't even gotten into that. But like, yeah, you mentioned the Marlins, and I like all those guys that they have. I really do. I think that their pitchers are really, they've always had good pitching. And like you said, Alcantara is not having the year. Luzardo's been okay. Braxton Garrett's been probably better than I think people thought. And Yuri Perez has been lights out, but
awesome.
he's the guy that's going to be on, you said, is going to probably be on the innings watch a little bit. Cabrera's had okay, but he's been hurt too. So, that's what you're looking at. I mean, there's not other than Alcantara, there's not a real track record of like these guys are going to hold up over the course of an entire year.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. And so that's the only reason I pump the brakes a little bit. I do like where they're going with that pitching staff. I just am not convinced. You want to talk about a guy who's done a real nice job, Skip Schumacher, as the manager of that Marlins team, to have them 12 games over 500. Right. I mean, aside from Arise, who's flirting with 400, I think they have one other regular with an OPS over 800, and that's it. And that's, I think, Soler. Yeah, that's it. I just looked it up. It's just Soler is the only other regular with an OPS over 800. So again, I think that's a little bit smoke and mirrors. But good on them. Good on the Marlins.
And one other thing I want to do before we kind of get closer to wrapping up here is we're talking about who's in. So then let's talk about who's out, so we can kind of set a trade deadline as it stands right now. Who's going to sell? Like, who's going to sell? Not even so much who's in position to buy, but who's going to sell at this point. So if you look in the National League, we can agree that the Rockies are donezo for this year, right? 19 games under, sure. Washington, not a contender, 17 games under, no shot. It gets a little bit more muddy. Now I'll actually jump up the standings before I get to these next two teams. Pittsburgh is just, that was fun for 2 months. It's over, right? Would we agree with that? I mean, even in the NL Central, they're 6 games under now. They're done. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cubs, you think Cubs are in? Like, Cubs
I think they're going to compete. They're not going to sell.
Okay, they're not a seller. All right. So then that's where we kind of land in the middle here. So you have the St. Louis Cardinals, who we talked about this probably about a week and a half ago now. We said they're in a critical juncture of their season. If they have any chance to get back into this, it's got to be right now. I would not say that they've necessarily exploded and run themselves back into a race here, but they are 12 games under 500 right now. They are 11 games out of a wild card spot. They have won 6 of their last 10 games. Are they selling?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that, look, 8 games back in the division, they probably hang around a little bit longer just to see if they can close that gap, because the division isn't a great division. But first, you're not making up 11 games in a wild card.
Okay.
Because just too many teams. They're in too many divisions. A lot of teams would have to fail. I just don't see that as viable. The 8 games in the division, is it doable? Certainly it's doable still, but I don't know. That's a lot. I mean,
does their pedigree and like, I'll call it pedigree and arrogance. Like, we're the Cardinals. We make the playoffs. They're not the Pirates. So do they kind of talk themselves into being in this, even if they're not? I mean, they are 1 weekend away from being 5 games out with 3 months to play, right? So it's not like it wouldn't take a miracle for them to win the NL Central. So you know why I'm focusing on
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
because
no,
certainly
yeah.
everyone wants to talk about Paul Goldschmidt, and for the
Well,
ratings here, let's talk about Paul Goldschmidt, right?
yeah, but so
Yeah.
that's the thing. So I was going to point out, John Mazalik, their GM, spoke, I don't know, about a week ago now, maybe a little bit less than that, where he basically has said that neither Goldschmidt nor Arenado were going to be moved, that they're not having a great season, but they still like their team, and they still feel like even if it's not to be their year in 2023, that it's a retool kind of situation and come right back at it in 2024 with a really good team. I think that the change that they'll make there won't be so much selling, other than maybe like some smaller pieces that may be, pending free agents like a John Flaherty or Jack Flaherty rather. But the change that they'll make is at manager. I don't think Ollie
Yeah.
Marmol is a really good manager, and I think that will be how St. Louis tries to retool and get ready for next year. I don't think that they contend. I think they probably fall out of it here over the course of the next 2 weeks, and they will be a quote unquote seller, but not a major seller.
Okay. Two other teams I want to get to. So
Yeah.
how do we look at the Padres? Because as I noted, currently they have the 8th best odds to win the National League. They're 5 games under 500. They are 4-6 in their last 10. Everyone kind of keeps waiting for this Padres team to make a move. They have so much top end talent in that lineup. You don't have to love their staff, but it's a decent staff. I mean, you look at runs allowed, and they've only allowed 313 runs this season. I believe actually that's the best in the National League. They're not winning though. Positive run differential. You just keep waiting and waiting and waiting for this team, but they're 7.5 games out of the wild card. They are, I believe, 10.5 games out of the division right now. What do the Padres do? I don't think that they're in a position where they can strip and sell. Do they just hope that eventually talent takes over and this thing course corrects, or like what happens here?
I think that they're just one of those stand pat teams this year. I think they've done so much. And look, but the one caveat is, they have an ownership group and a general manager who's unafraid to do, take big swings, and maybe they take yet another big swing at the deadline. Who knows? But I don't know. I can't see it, Bob. We just talked about the Dodgers, the Diamondbacks, and the Giants, and we say how they're all going to be in this thing. It's going to be really hard for the Padres to jump those teams, and that's the thing. They're going to have to get past at least one, probably two of them, if they're going to make the playoffs this year. And they have a real issue. They don't have a catcher. I mean, Austin Nola has been terrible. They went out and got Gary Sanchez. He stinks. They have nothing there. Jake Cronenworth has fallen off the table this year, having a bad year. Xander Bogaerts has been unimpressive. Manny Machado has been completely underwhelming this year. Soto and Tatis are really what's carrying that offense. I mean, they have no center field. Trent Grisham stinks. They have no, DH. They keep alternating between Matt Carpenter and Nelson Cruz, and neither one of them can hit. There's just I think there's too many holes there for them to overcome. Look, can Bogaerts and Machado get hot and get going and really kind of make that lineup be what we all thought it would be coming into the season? Sure, but I'm not certain that even those two playing to their standard are going to be enough for the Padres. I just think it's a bad year for them. And that they're going to be out of the mix, but I also don't think that they're a team that sells a lot. I think that they're just another one of those, like the Cardinals. They're a retool kind of team.
This has all been a slow build to one last team that I want to get to, and the team I want to talk about. So the New York Mets, just an unbelievable loss on Sunday. We talk about sometimes the Phillies' lack of urgency with how they utilize their bullpen. Buck Showalter watched that team. I mean, you could see it from a mile away.
Yeah.
He knew what was going to happen. He didn't use his best relievers in a game that was probably about as must win, not just for the standings, but probably the overall feel of a season as you could possibly get. They lose on Sunday. They lose 2 out of 3 in a series that they should have won, if we're being honest, but they didn't. Then they come out and they lose the opener to Milwaukee, and they bounce back last night. the Mets are 36-43. They're 8.5 games out of a wild card spot. They have absolutely no chance to win the NL East. They have a negative 14 run differential. We know what they are. We know they suck. Steve Cohen, it's a shame because he's going to talk today, and we're recording before that. I have no idea what he's going to say. What the hell are they going to do?
I think he's going to come out and basically say some shit today. Bob, I do. I think he's had enough, and I think it's either he lights the fire for his team, or else there's going to be changes. Okay. The thing is I'm not certain that they're going to get any value for what they would, the guys that they would move on from. Like who in this lineup are you really, really willing to move away from? You're obviously not moving. You're not trading Alonso. You're not trading Lindor. You're not trading Nimmo. They're your three big guys, right?
But man, if I were the Mets and I could trade Lindor, I would.
Yeah, well,
I would.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is that you're not moving that contract at this point, right? You're probably not trading Jeff McNeil. He's not having a Jeff McNeil year, but you're probably not trading him as well. You're not trading Alvarez. He's your young catcher, right? Young prospect catcher. Brett Beatty hasn't been anything special, but again, he's 23. You're not moving him. So who are you moving? Mark Canha, Starling Marte, right? I mean, Tommy Pham, right? I mean, like, what are you getting with these?
It's not enough to look at your team and say, hey, we're going to get better. We're going to get enough back where it's worth stripping this down. And then because they're in it again next year, like the Mets aren't taking a step back for 3 years.
Right.
So what you have to do now here is say, like, well, is there a chance that we can light a fire under this team's ass and they can get going and get back into it this year? Or do we trade off these fringe parts, get back some middling prospects, and then sort of recalibrate for next season? I think it really comes from the pitching side of things is where they would probably have to look. Like, you'd have to imagine David Robertson is a guy that would possibly be put on the block. And I wonder if privately you went to the pitchers and said, hey, Justin Verlander, you could get out of here. Max Scherzer, you could get out of here. Or if you look at it in your Epler, do you look at it and say, like, man, it would be great to trade one of these guys?
Well, I'll tell you, Scherzer's pitched much better over the last 5 or 6 starts. I think he's looked more like Max Scherzer. And I think that he's a guy who's got another year plus an option, I believe, on his contract.
Right.
That's a pitcher that could be moved. I don't think you can move the Verlander contract. I don't know if anybody would take that contract.
Yeah.
In light of what he's looked like this year. So yeah, maybe Scherzer. And then I think that they have a couple bullpen, like you mentioned, David Robertson. I think Brooks Raley is an interesting guy, left-handed reliever. He's pretty solid out of the pen. I think you can move him maybe an Ottavino. But that's again, I don't think that the Mets are a team that's going to get. I mean, these guys could be available, but what are you getting for them? I don't know. I just think that I love the fact that the Mets are $340 million payroll plus the penalty for being over the tax line there. And I look at it, Bob, and I say, and I don't have any information that can confirm this, but in my head, I'm trying to think of a team that had the highest payroll in their sport and was this underwhelming. This might be the biggest failure of all time. I mean, I know the numbers are always going to be bigger in the more recent years, but I would say just looking year by year in the sport, to say who had the highest payroll and where did that team finish, this 2023 Mets team may end up being the biggest flop ever.
Yeah. No, I'm fully with you, and I'm here for it. I'm here for the ride. All right. Well, obviously a little bit of a different show here today. Just kind of looking at more landscape of things. And I don't want to dive too much into the Phillies here and what they might do at the deadline. Like, I think we kind of know what they need.
Yeah.
But I'm more willing, because this is a Phillies podcast, I kind of want to let this thing come into focus a little bit more before you truly dive in and have that 30-minute conversation about how to play this.
Well, I also think because of the oddity of us doing it this midweek as opposed to on Monday, we'll probably, on the Friday episode, we'll let everybody know we'll probably have a lot more specifics to the Phillies in that episode just because of where we are.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird spot midweek. So
I wanted to make this show as usable for 3 days as possible. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
you're in the middle of a series like this and it's like, well,
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to one last thing and then bounce out of here.
Yeah. So one last thing. This is going to be a fun one today, Bob. No gripes, no complaints, no anything like that. This is something fun.
Okay.
Have you seen Immaculate Grid yet?
I have. I've been playing.
Have you?
I have.
So for anybody who hasn't done it yet, go to immaculategrid.com. And this is Wordle for baseball nerds, is what this is. And basically what you have to do is it's a 9-block square, right? And you have to, it's like a Sudoku kind of square, and you got to find a player that fits into the criteria for each square. So for example, today, the squares are somebody who played for both the A's and the Orioles, somebody who played for both the A's and the Twins, somebody on the A's who had 3,000 career hits, somebody who played for the Padres and the Orioles, somebody who played for the Padres and the Twins, somebody on the Padres with 3,000 career hits, and then somebody with 500 plus career homers who played for the Orioles, somebody with 500 home runs who played for the Twins, and somebody with 500 home runs plus 3,000 career hits. And you get 9 guesses to fill in the 9 squares. Obviously, you want to go 9 for 9. And but once you do, and this is what I like the best about this thing, Bob, if you go 9 for 9, which I've done more often than I've missed. I have a few misses.
All right, humble brag.
No. But I mean, I think sometimes if you cover the sport or you follow the sport, it's a little bit easier to fill in some of these blocks, right? But the fun thing that I try to do is when you get your answers right, to find a player. This is how I challenge myself. They show you the percentage of people that have answered that player.
Oh man, you're gonna do exactly. Okay. Actually, I have a rant about this. Not a rant, but
so I try to think of one that's going to be on the lower end to think that I came up with a really cool answer as opposed to, oh well, that's the easy answer.
Yeah.
Right. So that's I like doing it. I think it's fun. I spend about 20 minutes a day on this thing, and it's a good little baseball thing. So what were you going to say about it? What was your rant going to be?
Well, not a rant, but okay, so people, first of all, I want to be careful how I say this because I know people listening to this show are amongst these people, but I don't care about I don't care about how you filled it out. And I'm not impressed that you had a more obscure player than the obvious answer. Just fill the fucking thing out.
Well, yeah. Oh, I'm not sharing it, right? I'm not going out and look at my grid.
Well, it's okay. Okay, so that's fine. If you're keeping it to yourself and you're impressed with yourself, you give yourself a little chuckle where you say, I could have taken the layup. But I did it the hard way. And feel good about yourself. There's a lot of people out there that are like, look at how obscure my immaculate grid is. And I could have been 9 for 9 and done it your way.
Yeah.
But I did it my way. Okay, great.
I share my results with my 2 sons, and that's it. The 3 of us have a little thing, and we do it every day. And we're
that's fine. Yeah. Okay, that's
all. I don't put it out on social media or any of that stuff. All right. And just so everybody knows, there's a new grid every day. It refreshes every day. So I think it's worth doing. I think it's fun to do and do it your own way. Whatever. If you want to put the most obvious answer, put the most obvious answer. If you want to go, keep trying to go 9 for 9 every day, go for it. I don't mind if I get one wrong. I just like getting the obscure ones.
Did you play today?
No, I just read it. I just literally pulled it up. I haven't played it yet today.
Right.
That was the one I just read off today, where the Orioles, Twins, A's, and Padres. I do think though, just looking at it for the first time, I do think that the statistical ones are pieces of cake. I think those are the easiest ones. Yeah, and then you just have to think about the guys who played for both teams. And you'll be able to come up with those. It's funny because I find
there's a former Philly in mind today, a legend. It's an obvious one too.
Yeah, but, I'll tell you, Bob. You know what the funny thing is I find it finding it easier to think of older players who fit these, when in essence there's more movement of players today. And I think, then I go and I look at some of the responses or something like, oh, wow, how did I not think of that guy? Or how did I not think of that guy?
I'm actually bad at it. And I think that's probably why I'm salty because I'm not as good at it as I should be. And I'll go back after I get like 6 out of 9, and I'm like, that's pathetic. Like, I'm angry at myself, and then I Google. I'm like, how did I not think of this player, right? And what I do is I'll come up with like an obscure guy because it's the only. Sometimes I think of the obscure guy before I think of the obvious guy. But then there's one that's just blatantly obvious and I get it wrong. And I'm like, dude, come on. So today, actually, I started playing and I got the first 6 right. And then my dog peed on the floor and then that disrupted me. So I have to get back to the last 3 spots. I have not done better than 7 out of 9 yet. And I'm ashamed. I'm pathetic. It's pathetic. I should be better at this than I am. But like, I just have
7. I think 7 is my lowest score.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Far. I mean, because if you're a baseball person, you should get 7 out of 9, and I guess maybe I'm just a total fraud. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, I don't know. Maybe you rush. Do you rush it? Like, do you just try and do it real fast?
I do. I'm like, well, this is my 5 minutes to play. Let me see if I can figure it out. Typically, I'm not coming back after 7 hours, but
yeah, I mean, I try not to rush it. I will actually sit there and ponder a couple of them.
Like, I'm looking at it. Like, I just looking at this right now. I'm sure there's an obvious answer, and someone's listening to go, how do you not know this right off the top of your head? But I have a Twins Padres crossover here, and I'm like, I don't have a slam dunk that I've been able to fill in on that one yet. So we'll see.
I do have a slam dunk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you do because it's obvious, and this is why I'm terrible at this because 90% of our audience right now is listening to me going like, are you kidding me? You host a baseball podcast and you don't know who play for the Twins and Padres? Yeah. It'll come to me. I'm slow playing it today. When I'm, doing my midday bathroom break, maybe I'll have an epiphany. Got me all fired up about. This is the most fired up thing I've been like. With one last thing all year, this is the thing I've been most upset about.
Usually, I'm the one who's the old guy yelling.
Yeah,
at the crowd.
I actually thought you were going to ask me about Mickey Moniak. I thought that Mickey Moniak, after his 5 for 5 on Saturday night, was going to be our one last thing today. Let me ask you one last thing, Anthony. Is Mickey Moniak a budding superstar with the Los Angeles Angels now? No.
I know his numbers.
You know that he has 8 at bats against left-handed pitching this season?
Is that it? I didn't even look it up.
8. He's 0 for 8. And everyone's like, oh, you guys, Mickey Mantle all of a sudden. And I feel like a hater too. But like, I see some like Phillies fans, like actually one Philly radio guy, not Fritz, not like a why not Mick guy, took this like weird victory lap about Mickey Moniak on Sunday morning. And I'm like, dude, like he's having a nice year and like credit to him. I'm glad that he's not I'm not rooting against the guy by any means. Be successful. That's great. But like he's hitting 320. He's only facing righties. He's played like, I don't even know, less than 60 games. Like, let's just hold on.
Yeah. I think he's had a nice little run.
I'm impressed. Like I am impressed. I really am.
But keep in mind, like the 5 for 5 game, I think he jumped his batting average 50 points in one game. So let's pump the brakes. Just a hair.
He's hitting 317 in 101 at bats, 93 of which have come against right-handed pitching, which is good. Like there's nothing wrong with being a solid platoon option. He's been hitting leadoff for them some. The Angels are having a nice year. He's been a big part of it. Like this is all good. Not rooting against him by any stretch, but like what it is for me is like these people that are like, see, I told you Moniak was good. Like, dude, come on, man. Like,
let's here's one other thing to put into perspective with this. Okay. First of all, 2 for 12 since his 5 for 5 game. And prior to the 5 for 5 game, he was in an over. So let's just, pump the brakes a little bit. But here's the thing. 106 plate appearances, 33 strikeouts. 3 walks.
Wow. Jeez.
Okay. Let's hold all the Mickey Moniak excitement for a minute. Okay?
I mean, hey, like I said, best of luck to him. And I'm glad that he's having a season that I think will keep him in the league. You know what I mean? Like what he's done here is he's made sure that he's going to have a job for a few years, if nothing else. And I'm not trying to sell him short. I mean, maybe he becomes like a really consistent and valuable left-handed option, or whether it be a starter or fourth outfielder. That's good stuff and all. But I mean, I woke up Sunday and there were like 4 different tweets, and I know that these things shouldn't impact my psyche the way that they do, but like these people that were just like, I told you so. I'm like, oh my God, like just let's relax here a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I know. Listen, the Phillies are playing well right now. Things are good in life. Anniversary today, Anthony. All good in
Happy
my world, but
anniversary.
I got a little saltiness about me today. I don't know why.
It's because you didn't complete your immaculate grid.
Yeah,
That's what. You haven't gotten a 9 for 9
I'm never
yet.
going to be right until I complete the immaculate grid. Damn it. Pathetic.
So,
all right. Well, it's
anyway.
time to wrap it up here. You can follow the show at Up Phillies. You can follow Anthony at AntSamPhilly. You should follow Anthony on Twitter if you are not, because not only is he a good Phillies reporter and writer, but man, he's cooking with the Flyers right now. You can follow me at Bob Wankel CB if you want to look at some stats that don't really matter. Make sure that you're listening to us on YouTube. Watching us on YouTube, I should say, listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you get your shows. We will be back on Friday morning after this Cubs series and ahead of a weekend set with the Nationals, and we will talk to you soon.